Welcome to the Keen on Yoga podcast, bringing you the stories of many people who in various ways are attempting to walk the path of yoga. Our intention is to inspire your own practice and commitment to yoga beyond the mat and in all areas of life. We consider this an offering, a service to the community and labour of love. If you feel inclined, any donations are appreciated. Just visit our page and click the donate button at www.keenonyoga.co.uk/podcast. I hope you enjoy the show. Today's guest on the Keen on Yoga podcast is Marque Garaux. Marque began practice whilst in the US Marines in order to relieve his lower back pain. He found a general yoga DVD and used to go through the routine in his own barracks. An avid rock climber and outdoorsman, he was desperate not to allow what had become a debilitating condition to dominate his life and stop him doing what he loved. However, he says Ashtanga, when he finally arrived at it, was the hardest thing he'd ever done, harder than the army. Inspired by Dave Christensen, also a guest on the Keen on Yoga podcast, he travelled to Miami and began to incorporate the back bend sequence in his practice that he'd been avoiding for obvious reasons. Perhaps surprisingly, he found the drop back sequence healing for his back. Further encouraged, he committed to a daily Ashtanga practice and travelled to Mysore in 2014, where after 3 trips, he's authorised to teach level 2. He teaches at his Shala in the Great Lakes, Ohio, where he lives, and the Shala is set on 10 acres of woodland, a beautiful aspect.
So welcome, Mark, to the Keen on Yoga podcast. Really pleased you made it today. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. I think a newer student of the Ashtanga method. Can you just give us a little bit of your background with it, when you started and your time in Mysore, etc.? A little bit of an overview.
Yeah. So I was in the U.S. Marines when I was out of high school. I served 4 years there, and it was during that time in the Marine Corps that I injured my back. I started having a lot of back pain, and I had some herniated discs in my lumbar spine.
Oh, wow.
And I was only 21, 22 years old, and I was pretty fit otherwise. I really liked working out. I liked being active. I was into rock climbing and skiing and camping. So I didn't like the idea of, suggestions were like, hey, get surgery. And I was like, I don't like that. It doesn't sound good. So then every once in a while, someone would just mention in passing, oh yeah, I know someone who did yoga for their back and it made them feel better. And it just kept getting brought up more and more to my attention. So I was living in Northern California in the middle of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, not far from Yosemite National Park. So it was a pretty small little area, not a lot of population, no yoga studios around at all. So I went to a Target store and found a yoga DVD. And it was just a generic vinyasa DVD, nothing special. I started doing that maybe once a week or twice a week on my own in my barracks room to kind of see.
You're still in the army. You're still in the Marines at that point.
Yeah, I was still in the Marines at this point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
And I would just do it once in a while, to see if my back would feel better. And it did. I mean, it felt really nice while I was doing it. I felt good for a day or two afterwards, but I wasn't committed to it. I didn't know anything about yoga. I just thought it was a really nice stretching routine and it made my back feel better. So that was it. And it wasn't until my late 20s, I had, gotten out of the Marine Corps. I had, met my current wife now, Sarah. I met her through climbing. We were climbing together, and my back started acting up again. And some of our trips, my back would go out, and I wouldn't even be able to walk down the trail. I'd have to crawl out.
Wasn't that bad?
Right. It was getting really bad. Yeah, sometimes it would go out, and I couldn't even put weight in my feet. It was horrible.
Right.
Yeah. And she was like, "Well, this sucks. I want to go climbing with you, and you're always injured." So that's when we decided, where we were living at a time now. Now we were living in Geneva, Ohio, which is where I live now. And it's a small town, about 8,000 people, and no yoga studio here. So we drove, about 45 minutes towards Cleveland, Ohio, and found some yoga studios and would do yoga there once in a while. But it wasn't like satisfying us. I mean, I was feeling good, but I started feeling like there's got to be more to yoga. Like I wanted to learn like something deeper, understand this more. So we found David Swenson's book, The Practice Manual.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is a set sequence. Looks like it'd be easy enough to memorize. Let's just do this on our own at home. So
yeah, I mean, you're not the only one there. I think.
Yeah. I think a lot of people start that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I
rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's attracted you maybe. What work were you doing? I mean, just to flesh out your background. I mean, when you came out of the Marines, what kind of stuff were you doing work-wise?
Well, actually, I went through a lot of different jobs. I had trouble as an adult, like as a young adult, like finding my path and kind of like what I was supposed to do.
Right.
So actually, when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I was kind of missing that brotherhood, that camaraderie. So I went through firefighter academy. I went through police academy, and I went through like EMT school, like to be like a emergency responder. I went through all those schools real quick when I first got out, and then I ended up getting hired as a police officer, believe it or not. So I did that for 1 year and realized that it was not for me. I didn't like that. So then I was managing a climbing gym for a while. That's when I met my wife. I was doing that. I worked in the plumbing and heating field for a while. Installing furnaces.
You've been around, right? So okay. So then, henceforth, your beautiful log burner. Did you put that in yourself?
No, actually, I didn't put it in myself. It was here when we bought the house, but.
We're not the only one that came out of an army background. You know, Shandor Remete, who we've had on, he served in Vietnam.
Oh wow!
Cool. He was actually in Vietnam. Yeah. Did you? I mean, were you just in the US, or did you move? Did you go overseas with the training?
I lived in Okinawa, Japan, for 1 year.
Okay.
But so I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps in 2003, and that was kind of right whenever things were starting to get heated up in Afghanistan. So I got out kind of just like, my 4 years ended kind of right before all that happened. So I never deployed for like wartime. No.
Yeah. So sorry, I digress, but it always seems to be incredibly exotic to be in the Marine Corps. It's like
I tell people it was
like a super agent. Yeah.
It was hard. I mean, it was difficult, but I always tell people that it was just training for Ashtanga. Ashtanga is harder. So.
You think so?
Sometimes I do. Yes.
Well, okay. So carry on. So you started managing the gym, and you found David Swenson's book, and because I don't know what teachers you've had actually. I mean, you mentioned Sharath on your social media stuff, but I don't know what other background you've had with teachers.
Well,
so what happened after that?
I didn't have a lot of teachers. At this vinyasa studio that my wife and I were going to, there was a guy who kind of came through. He was a little bit of a drifter. He came through and then was gone a few months later. But he came through and taught the primary series, led for about, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something. So I would go to that like once a week if I could. Yeah. That was like my real first introduction to Ashtanga. And then when he left, it kind of left us like missing it, So we found David Swenson's book, and then David Swenson was actually the first person I ever practiced with, the actual like Ashtanga teacher, to do a Mysore.
He did Mysore with you, I
did.
That sounds kind of unusual because David, you don't get so much Mysore with David,
Well, actually, so I went down to Columbus, Ohio. I think this was in like maybe 2012 or 2013. I went down to Columbus, Ohio. There's a big studio down there that has a lot of guests in, and they were having David Swenson in for a week, and it was actually led every day. But I went a few days early and did Mysore at Taylor Hunt's studio. So that was my first ever. That was my first ever like opportunity doing Mysore.
Okay. Yeah. And that was in what year?
I think that was 2012 or 2013.
Okay, right. So when did you start? You must have started like in 2010 then or something, right?
Like the end of 2009, beginning of 2010, right in there.
Wow. That's quite recent. Yeah. Wow. So you built up a good, you had the training, didn't you? You had the training with the Marine Corps and, right. So So following that, you did David, and then, you've done a couple other teachers, and then you went to Mysore 2014. Authorized now to teach the intermediate as well, I think.
Yeah. Authorized level 2. Yeah. It was actually in 2015. 2014. Like right before I went to Mysore, I went down to Miami Life Center. And Kino and Tim were supposed to be doing a workshop together. So I signed up for that, like a 2-week intensive. But then they changed the schedule last minute, and it was Kino and Day Christensen, who I know you know, and then also Patrick Nolan.
Patrick I know as well. Yeah.
So it was the 3 of them that were teaching instead of Kino and Tim. And it was during that trip that I was like encouraged to go to Mysore.
Right.
I was like, what do I do from here? I don't know. I don't have a teacher at home, and I like practicing with you guys. It's awesome, but I don't live in Miami. And they were like, go to India. Like, all 3 of them was like, go to Mysore. So I took that as okay, time to go. Yeah.
Right. So, and subsequent to starting Ashtanga, because the one defining aspect of your journey with this is that you had the back difficulties, and did that just go away? And what, I suppose that we could talk a bit more about that. How did you, before we go on to your experiences in Mysore, how did you find it with the back, and did you have relapses, and what postures seemed to help it? It will be an interesting topic. Yeah.
Great questions. Yeah. So when I was practicing on my own, I would have really great days where I could like fold nice, and it would stretch my QL, on the low back, and it would feel really good. But then I'd have days where ego would get a hold of me, and I'd like go too deep in like Supta Kramasana or something. And then my back would hurt really bad, and I'd be sore for, 3 or 4 days. So it was a back and forth. And the whole time I was questioning myself, because I didn't really have a teacher. I didn't really know what I was doing. But I was also questioning the Ashtanga practice. Like, is this really good for me or not? I wasn't 100% certain. I was not backbending because I was too afraid to do it.
Right. Well, you didn't do that at all.
No, I was doing up dog. But at the very end, like for Urdhva Dhanurasana, I would just do like 3 really wimpy versions of it with no real effort. And that's what I would do, and I thought it was going to make my back worse. I was really afraid of back bends. So I wasn't doing them. And it was actually Day who, that first
kind of
day
ironic actually with Day. Knowing that,
well, she's changed a little. We all change,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure she wouldn't recommend you going to Mysore now either.
No. But it was it was my first day practicing down there, and I was kind of nervous. I hadn't practiced in the Mysore room very much. And I try to like hide in the back of the room and do my practice, and she immediately picks me out, because she didn't recognize me. And at the end of my practice, I like just do 3 really bad back bends, and I don't stand up or drop back. And she comes back and she's like, "What are you doing? Like, you have to do your back bends." She like called me out on it. And you know how she's very like stern and a matter of fact, and she was just very blunt and like, "You need to back bend. It's what you're supposed to do," So I told her, I was like, "Well, I don't know how to stand up and drop back." So she like helped me with a few, and then she said, "Go to the back of the room and just keep working on it until you stand up." It was very like, what? This is what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
But part of me really, really loved that. I loved her confidence in me. She was just like, go to the back of the room and do it until you stand up. Like, she seemed like there was no waver in her confidence. Like, she knew I could do it. So because she knew I could do it, I felt like, yeah, I can do this, And because I said, I always had question in my practice before. I questioned myself. I questioned the style. And she was so stern and matter of fact that I just felt like all this trust in her. I was like, yes, like she knows what she's talking about, So it was actually on like day 2 or day 3, I actually stood up on my own. And I thought I would never, it was not something I ever wanted to do or wished to do or anything. But that's really the turning point. That's when my back started healing. When I learned how to back bend properly. Yeah. Those herniated discs I had, with the proper spinal extension, they started to then go back into place.
Right. So it wasn't the forward folding that was healing. So you thought it was the back bending that was healing, not the forward folding.
No, the back bending.
Go ahead. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say that the back bending, it was the most terrifying part of my practice, but it felt so relieving and it felt so good. It was like a breath of fresh air. And the forward folding just kept like exacerbating the problem. You know, like with herniated discs, the rounding forward, that spinal flexion is what really causes problems. So yeah, it was amazing. It was like a turning point for me.
And have you had setbacks along the way? Have you had relapses, or has it just been one smooth kind of trajectory into healing?
It's been pretty smooth up until the beginning of 2020.
All right.
Yeah. So it's really weird, but like the back bending feels so good for my back. When I'm doing it, it feels amazing. But one side effect of back bending is that it does tighten and strengthen the low back muscles. You know, those low back muscles are shortening; they're contracting. So it tightens and makes them you know, stronger, tighter. So that's fine. You know, I mean, it feels good for my back when I do it. But then what it's done to me is, because my back is tighter now, it's made my forward folding much more difficult. And for a while, I was pushing myself too deep, trying to like catch by myself every day. I was just really going too deep every day. And I think the back bending is excellent. I think my spine needs it. I think too deep of back bending has caused too much tension in my low back, to where now I'm actually struggling to put my legs behind my head. So I'm a little bit of a relapse. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, most people wouldn't call putting your legs behind your head a relapse, but you know, nevertheless, you know, you're walking in and out, which is
absolutely.
Right. And the forward folds, have you found? I mean, you said they aggravate your back, the flexion. I mean, you know, it's funny that you come on just simply kind of quite close to today's podcast, where you know she's all about rounding in the forward folds now and finding a way to do forward folds more comfortably. And she's not back bending at all, as well. Right, not even an upward dog, I think. But anyway, I digress. What your forward folds? Have you got any advice on that? I mean, because I see a lot of people assume a forward. I mean, because the unfortunate thing about a forward fold is that's not anything to do with the Sanskrit name of any forward fold. You know, they're back stretches. Paschimottanasana is a back stretch. You're pulling back. You're not pulling forward. When I learned them, when you probably learned them, when most of us learn them, we take our feet and we try and pull ourselves as far into a pancake position as possible, because you're assuming in the most literal manner that that's what you're meant to do. So let's increase that, right? Not pull against it. And I still see people doing it. And how do you teach a forward fold, and how have you kind of come to adjust yourself in forward fold?
So I teach a forward fold probably just like a back bend, like a lot of different ways. I really try to look at the student and see like what's going on with their spine, and like, you know, do they tend to round forward more? Do they have more of a posterior tilt, or do they have more of an anterior tilt in their pelvis? And yeah, so I mean, I really try to like fit it to the student. And I think, you know, for me right now, I need a little bit of flexion to get that stretch of the QL. But if I do too deep of flexion, if I go really, really deep, because my hamstrings are tight, I don't quite get enough turning of the pelvis. And then I can easily set my back out of place again. So it's really a tough balance right now, because I need to stretch the low back, because the back bends have made my low back tight. However, the flexion and sometimes let those discs bulge out again. So I have to be very mindful and not push. Yeah.
So what was your experience of Mysore then? Because obviously, you know, it's funny you say, well, I wasn't doing any back bends, and you're encouraged to go to Mysore. It's like, well, you better get ready for a back bend, because you know, you'll be catching before you know it.
Absolutely.
What,
day one, if you made me do it.
Yeah. How can you define your time in Mysore? I mean, you've been twice. You've got authorized. We were speaking before. You got authorized quite quickly.
Yeah, I've been 4 times.
Four times. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Right. Okay.
That's right.
But you got authorized after 2 trips, I think, right?
Well, no. So I went 2015 was my first, you know, season, and I went the next year. My third year was the year that, I don't know if you remember, but like Sharath accidentally accepted too many people, and then a lot of people got pushed off the list, and they got backed up to the next month. There was all kinds of confusion with it. Do you remember that year?
Oh, you know what? I hadn't. To confess,
Okay.
I haven't been since the whole applying online. It just became too. Yeah, it became too difficult, and we kept trying and getting rejected. So at that point, I felt I had a good innings with it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
good for
haven't
you.
been since maybe. Yeah, well, we tried and we got rejected, and then I think we tried the next year and we didn't get in again. And then I just thought, well, I think that was 2015 or something,
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, well, we have other, we've been a lot, and have other things to do as well, So yes, that seemed to be the kind of time that we kind of bowed out. Not to say I wouldn't go again, but it didn't seem to be flowing. Yeah.
I think a better system needs to be put in place for sure.
Maybe like one could rent a huge or buy a huge hangar, that might work. There's a lot of space in that. It's just a possibility.
So that third year is when I wasn't able to get in. So I ended up applying with Saraswathi, and I practiced with her that year. Yeah, so I just wanted to go, So I practiced with her that year, and then it was my fourth year where I got authorized.
Okay,
my third time was Sharath, the fourth time in Mysore.
And you're going back to the back bend thing. You okay with the deep back bends there, with your back and everything?
Yeah, I've actually never had any pain anywhere in my body. Well, no, I don't want to say that. I've had pain, but nothing like major, like what happens at home sometimes. When I'm in Mysore, like everything kind of moves pretty smoothly.
Right.
There is like magic to practicing with that many people, and that heat too. The heat of Mysore, it really feels good. So my body usually feels pretty good there. But yeah,
do you do anything?
I'm
sorry. I was going to say, do you do any preparations in or outside the class? Just to because a lot of people are, it's an interesting topic. Obviously, a lot of people suffer with pain. A lot of people suffer with back pain. So, that's for people listening, that they want to know: is there anything they can do to relieve it, or anything that you would recommend?
Well, I have about a 15-minute hip and low back routine that I do every morning before my practice.
Okay.
So I do like some stretches of like the deep six lateral rotators, like those external rotation movements. I work on Hanumanasana. I have just some things that I do. It takes about 15 minutes before I practice to kind of get things opened up. And I find my first Surya Namaskara is much better and almost no back pain if I do that. Where if I don't do that, then it takes me, all the sun A's and the sun B's to really warm my spine up to where I can fold okay.
Reasonable. I used to do a primary series before I went to Les Intermediate.
That's a big warm up.
Well, just to make sure I was in good condition. I didn't want to face that cold really. Just to go down there, pretend you just woken up and got out of bed.
It's a lot of work.
Well, I didn't say I suffer with back pain, but I think for most people, you want to take care of that area and make sure you can protect and strengthen that area as much as possible. Especially with teaching as well. I think have you found it difficult teaching and you're bending over a lot of people and this kind of thing? It can aggravate.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that first trip though for me, I kind of fell in love with Mysore right away. That first trip, but not for the practice necessarily. I came home and students would ask me like, "Well, what'd you learn?" And you can't really put it into words. It's not like attending a workshop. You don't say like, "Oh, I learned how to, forward fold this way," or I learned this about the hip, or I learned about meniscus tears. Like you don't learn that kind of stuff. But I felt like I just learned so much about my own practice, during that first trip. And it was, it was phenomenal. I had an amazing trip. And
you say you learn about practice. Can you explain any further on that? Did you learn physically, or you think any kind of deeper symbolism with it?
Yeah, no, like not the physical practice. I learned more about the physical practice practicing with more like Western teachers, or even just studying anatomy on my own,
right?
Things like that. But the opportunity in Mysore for me to like just shut the mind off and practice and be with all that energy, it's just it's a really powerful practice for me. And and then a big part of being in India is just like living in India, like not having my daily job, my stresses and bills to think about while I'm away. I almost feel guilty going to India because it's like a vacation for me. I don't usually take vacations. So it's like really relaxing.
Yeah,
I can read a lot.
yeah.
I can meditate a lot. I go over to Operation Shanti, the orphanage outside of Gokulam, and work with those little kids and play with them and stuff. And I started rescuing street dogs, and I brought a bunch of street dogs home to the U.S. So it's all the other things I do while I'm there that make it such a rich experience, And I think Ashtangis that maybe only look at the asana practice go to Mysore and then come back disappointed because we don't learn a lot of asana there, but there has to be more, I think, to the practice. I mean, it's not just asana,
And you're kind of well known now for some strength and kind of core stuff, right? And what does it? I mean, that's not to say it's a discrepancy, but what is it kind of lies behind that? Is there any, any further? You know what I mean? Is there what's the real grist to doing that?
So I mean, I do enjoy the asana practice, but it's not why I get on my mat every day, But I've always been a very active person, like the Marine Corps and rock climbing and ice climbing. So I really like to physically push myself. I enjoy that. So it's, like working on some drills and making my lift ups and jump backs stronger or pressing up into handstand. I enjoy doing those things, but when it's my actual practice, like in the morning, I do it around 3:30 a.m. I don't do a whole lot of that kind of movements. It's more of a personal practice, and I don't always record my practice that often, because it's kind of dark in the room, the lighting's not good. But I just, my morning practice is just very, it's very introspective. And but I don't know. I guess there's that little bit of duality there. I think a lot of people think that I'm just all about anatomy and jumping and lifting and that stuff, but it's really not my forte.
Yeah, that comes across. But nevertheless, it's something that a lot of people want to do, and maybe it's an easy, in certain respects, it's kind of an easy hook to get people into yoga.
It is.
It's exciting, and it's it's just something. I always say we're embodied, and if we're embodied, so it's a primary concern. What the body can do, what it potentially can do. And so you get hooked into it, hooked into the yoga, and then maybe after a certain amount of practice, you kind of realize, well, that's it's not really that important after all. And by that time, you're kind of into something else. You're kind of into the concentration aspect of it. Takes over maybe. But I wanted to say, I mean, you're doing a lot of that strength stuff online. It's really good, and it's nicely done. But you kind of doing the challenge, and with this idea, there's an assumption that everyone can build up to that. Would you think that's your experience so far?
That's kind of my beliefs. Yeah, where I'm going with, is I think strength of the body is fun and cool, but I really think that it's more about the mind and like your determination, your dedication, so much more. And like I sometimes tell my students, there has been very easy things in my life that I failed at, but then there's been very hard things in my life that I've succeeded at. And the difference wasn't because of like my potential for that thing, or like my strength or my intelligence or whatever. The difference was my desire. Like if something's easy but you really don't want to do it, then you're probably not going to do it. You're not going to do well with it. So it's all about your desire and your mindset. When you want something, you believe you can do it, then I think the mind is virtually limitless.
So you think that you can kind of will yourself into doing the kind of handstands and that kind of thing?
I do. Yeah. I mean, maybe not like on day one. It might take some training.
Right.
But I do believe that we can pretty much do whatever we put our minds to. And I mean, the practice, when you start getting into the more advanced series, you start to see that. I mean, it's like some of these postures don't look like they'd be good for the body or humanly possible. Maybe they aren't even good for the body, some of them. But yeah, it's mind over matter. It's like we are saying like, well, like, this is a possibility. This is all I'm capable of, whatever I want to be capable of. So I think that's like powerful, for the asana practice.
Oh yeah. Well, I know. I mean, I'll definitely go down that path to a certain degree. I mean, yeah, like, is there any way to strengthen that determination, or perhaps what works for you to galvanize a sense of determination with it? Obviously, you put a work into it, and you put a lot of effort into doing this, which I did as well. But what was the motivation for you, or any tips if people perhaps struggle with just getting on the mat and doing it? What's the easiest way? I mean, it's something that people ask so much. How do I get the jump through, jump back? Everyone wants to learn this. I always say I market workshops, and I always say I give a studio a whole bunch of topics, and I always get the same one: the jump through, jump back. That's what everyone wants to do, and so I just go with that, and then I just slip something else in. After I shouldn't say that, but after a little while, the jump through, jump back. What is the most? There's the most easy way to get into it in terms of an exercise drill that you might just flesh out, and what is the way to kind of stick at it, right? Like if someone's if someone's feeling like I can't get this, I've tried it for years. People say I still can't get it to my body type. I've got short arms, all this stuff. Yeah. Have you got any words of advice here?
Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time in workshops. Someone raises their hand and they're like, I think my arms are too short.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's true. We're all built a little differently. I do have pretty long arms, which has been a real benefit as a rock climber. And for binding, it's a benefit. But I really think, whatever your arm length is, that's what you're given. That's what you're stuck with. But what we can do is, we can't lengthen our arms any, but we can shorten our torso. So if you sit up really straight with a straight spine, like Dandasana, and then try to push the ground down, you're not going to get much clearance at all. It's going to be a very small amount. But if you then do spinal flexion and engage your abs and bring your chest lower to your thighs and then press the ground down, you're going to get like a foot or foot and a half of space under your butt from the ground. So it's really about pulling up and lifting. So I know a lot of people aren't into bandas and they think that it's like a mythical thing, but whether they are or not, I do think core strength, I think that internal strength, that lifting is so important to get that clearance, that space.
If people haven't got a whole bunch of training behind them, like maybe you have, is there any kind of basic exercises that people can do to develop that?
I think probably the easiest one to explain on here. Because I mean, I have a lot of drills that I do, but it's just to like sit with straight legs and bring your chest down as low as you can, whatever your spine allows. If your chest can go to your legs, then fine, like go all the way down, and you put your hands underneath the shoulders, and then as you press the ground down, you try to keep that same spacing between your chest and your legs. You try to let the chest lift away from the legs. If you keep that, that's a lot of core strength and hip flexor strength to keep that all together, that little package tight. And you just lift up and down with the heels staying on the ground. So you're like hinging on the heels and lifting. And I think that really creates a lot of awareness of just how much the core needs to work to get that lift up and jump back.
Yeah. What about mental determination or focus?
Well, so yeah, that's the real test. That's the real thing that I love about the practice. Is so if you're having a good day where your body doesn't hurt and you feel really strong, you feel really flexible, you feel really light, it's pretty easy to stay on your mat. There's not a whole lot of things in your head saying, I kind of want to stop now, or it'd be so much better if I just went back to bed. When you're having a great practice, you're motivated to stay there. But that doesn't really teach us anything. We might get physically stronger that day because we worked a little harder. But it doesn't help the mind, I don't feel like. it's my worst days, the days where I'm in the most pain, that I learn the most, because it's those days that I'm not strengthening the muscles, I'm strengthening my determination, my ability to stay on the mat when I don't want to be. And that is a real challenge, especially the longer you do it. You've been doing this practice a long time. You probably see the longer it goes on, the more it's like, it's not as exciting as it used to be.
Yeah, it's definitely different to when I started. Yeah.
So I think,
but the body changes as well. The other thing is that the practice changes as the body changes. So, I started it when I was 19, right? I'm 42.
Wow.
So
amazing.
I've done it a long time. And what you'll notice, I don't know how old you are, the body corroborates, your own experience of it, right? What you think maybe is the experience of practice, it happens to be the experience of the body at a certain age in practice, so it changes as you go on, So that's why I'm reluctant to kind of fully embrace the mind over matter, because stuff that I thought was mind over matter when I was in my 20s now happens to be not mind over matter. It happens to be fucking facts. So that the body isn't going to do that. As much as I would have it in my head that I've done it, and it's going there, and it's like, actually, no, that doesn't move. That doesn't move like that anymore.
Well, that is true. I mean, the physical body does wear out.
And practice develops and it deepens in other ways. And I have to say, without and I'm I'm not necessarily a kind of positive spin all the time guy, but I have to say, it always deepens and it develops, even in the non-physical way. What apart from the back bend? What is your biggest obstacle in the practice then over the time that you've been doing it?
I think the area of my body I struggle with the most is my hamstrings. I was in the Marines and I've done a lot of mountaineering. So my lower body, hip flexors, hamstrings, everything was just so tight when I started. I couldn't touch my toes. Just very tight. And I've come a long way, but there's still the thing that, when I go to forward fold, I have to consciously really think to rotate the hips and get a little more hamstring stretch, or it all happens in the lumbar spine, which is another one of my issues with my back. Is if my back does too much of the work and the hamstrings don't do enough of it, then it aggravates my back. But those hamstrings have been very stubborn, and they've loosened up a lot, but not as much as I'd like them to. That's a area for me.
Where are you kind of going now with the practice? What are your intents? What are you working on? And what would you like to achieve in the next 5 years, say?
As far as asana goes, I don't really have goals or achievements. I really don't care if I am given any more postures or not, honestly. I love the maintenance that I do every day to keep my back moving. So, my real goal, other than spiritual and, those internal reasons, my real goal physically is just to still be able to do what I'm doing now in another 20 years when I'm 60. So I'm 40 now. So I'd like to do the same stuff when I'm 60. I'd like to do the same stuff when I'm 70. I really want longevity with my body. And some of my climber friends, I have some climber friends who are in their mid and late 60s, and they're still climbing just as hard, if not harder, than my wife and I. They're still climbing hard. They're strong. They're fit. They're doing well. And I want to do that. I love being outside. I want to still climb when I'm that age. I want to still be able to go hiking and enjoy myself. But what I learned when I was in my 20s is if your back doesn't work right, you can't do shit. It's just everything hurts when your back hurts, So it's really just about aging gracefully at this point. Now, like I said, I haven't been able to do legs behind the head postures for a while, so it'd be nice to get those back for sure. But if it means hurting my back over and over again to do that, then it's not worth it.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
No, it happens. I think I was speaking to a friend this morning actually about, people taking, people taking maybe the instruction of Mysore too literally, and those that have been able to be pragmatic with the Ashtanga instruction over the years are generally those people that have sustained it in longevity. I'm thinking of people like, John Scott, I know well, Richard Freeman, I saw these people practicing and the way that they were instructing, and, in their, later years, and they have had a pragmatic and reasonable approach on it, and I think that, that's, I don't offer usually my opinions, but that's the way I think, if you take it by the rule and keep it by the rule, then in the end, then it'll probably crush you.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think a lot of these teachers that are very dogmatic and just say like, well, this is how you do it. This is the way. I don't think they're necessarily looking at their students, I
or
think
looking at the long term as well.
Yeah, the long term. I think a robot could teach, a very set sequence and not ever give any, so I think as you look at students and as you see students aging and as we age ourselves, I think we start to understand more like, what is right, what is right for this person, what is good for them, but
it's perfectly possible. I mean, my primary teacher was outside Mysore was Marque, and he hasn't done it recently, but no, maybe he did do it this year. He's 72 or something, and every year he was posting he's pressing up into handstand. Awesome. I think he did it. Yeah, so he's done it in his 70s. Yeah. So and if you look at the way he practices, very sustainable. It's very pragmatic approach, to looking carefully at the asanas, So, I mean, in terms of the, so you don't, so you kind of, you're doing great stuff with the drills and the, the strength work. But what is your spiritual background? Are you're meditating, or you're looking at text, or what are you interested in that front?
Yeah, so I was raised Catholic. So I had to go to mass every Sunday and say my prayers every night. So. I think I always had an idea, that like, I was always kind of a spiritual person, and I always had an idea that there was like, more to understand and this and that. So a big part of the practice for me is reading all this stuff. I really enjoy the sutras. I love Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But I really like to sit and read and think on the things I read, or, a lot of times I use Instagram as like a journal in a sense. A lot of times the things I'm writing are things that I need to hear, or I need to remind myself of, different,
right.
When I write about philosophy or things, it's just what I'm needing, But I do meditate every day. And
also you live out into, what looks like a beautiful kind of natural area, right? As well.
Yes. Yeah.
You're in the middle of the countryside or something
we live in the woods. We have like 8 acres that are all wooded. We have our house here, and then we also 30 feet away from the front door of our house is our yoga shala. It's on the same property.
Yeah, I could see that. But your house is on 8 acres.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a little. Yeah, it's a little.
That's a big space.
Yeah.
It must take you some time to kind of keep up with that.
It does. Yeah. There's a lot of trees that are dying, that are dead, that are going to fall if I don't cut them down. So I'm cutting trees down a lot, and for firewood, and there's a lot of maintenance to do. But I really enjoy it. In my job, I mean, I now teach yoga full time, so I run my Mysore program from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then the rest of the day.
You told me that it's a long time.
Yeah, it is long.
You shorten it, and you're going to get everyone into a smaller group, or maybe you can't now because of social distancing, I suppose.
Yeah, I can't. I can only fit 4 in the room at a time. So,
that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
and you're kind of quite remote there. You're in Geneva, Ohio, right? But you're getting a good group of people together.
Yeah. I've had a shala in this area since 2016. I opened it up. I probably have 20 people that come in and out of the door every day. It's not that much. It's not a ton, but it's enough for this small town. There's no other yoga studios around. I could have easily drove 45 minutes, to the west and went toward like Cleveland, Ohio, and opened a shala in a busier place. But I really wanted to have it out here. I just like it out here. And
are you working outside Mysore? Are you working with any other teachers or any other things particularly, or?
Right now, no. I'm like I'm not working with any other teachers.
Right. You're just keeping it.
Yeah, I'm just really enjoying my home practice right now and trying to like find my way, every day with the practice. And I would like to find a teacher to work with in between trips, but I just don't have that person right now.
Right. And outside logging dead trees, what other stuff do you do? Climbing and
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. What about food and cooking? What are your tips for diet? Everyone loves to talk about food. What do you reckon? Is there anything that will build people to get strength like you?
I've always just been.
Are you vegetarian?
More or less. I say flexitarian a little more because I will eat really whatever people make for me. And I'll accept it with gratitude. I'm not going to turn down. If my mother makes some like pasta sauce and there's meat in it, I'll eat it.
Right.
But my wife and I mean, our groceries are vegetarian. We just cook and eat a vegetarian diet here at home. I'm not vegan though. I like cheese way too much.
The Italian heritage.
Yes, yeah, I have to have cheese.
Yeah.
But
I tell you, I used to eat Dharma Mitra, and the one thing he kept going, the mozzarella. He loved mozzarella. He was so sad to give it up because he's vegan. He's mainly raw. He kept talking to me about how much he missed. Well, no, I don't think he missed it anymore, but that was the hardest thing I think he found out of all his asana practice, to give up mozzarella. You could tell he loved it. Yeah. So what kind of stuff do you eat to get your proteins? Obviously, people will be saying, well, how do you get your keep your strength up like that?
I will do a smoothie every day after Mysore. So around like 11:30 or something is my first meal of the day. I'll usually have a smoothie with like some sort of non-dairy milk, either like oat milk or almond milk as a base. And then I'll do like some peanut butter, spinach, banana, and then I'll add like a protein powder, a plant-based protein powder. Sometimes matcha powder, sometimes like a super greens powder, just different things like that. Chia seeds. So I do that every day, and that I get a lot of protein there. But then I also am pretty good about balancing like the amino acids in food. So like I'll do like beans and rice, where I get a complete protein. Almost every night of the week, my wife and I have just a giant salad. We have these 2 big glass bowls that are huge. And we just put like all the greens in, and we can fit in these bowls. And that's our dinner almost every single night. Maybe on Friday nights we'll have like pasta or pizza or something, but typically it's big salad. Yeah.
She practices as well. She practices vegan.
She does. Yes.
Right. Okay. Are you teaching her or she?
Am I teaching her?
Yeah. No. Well, I tried that. Well, I tried that with my wife once, and it just, it didn't work so well. So
no, I try to be her teacher. I try to give her assists. Yeah. But when I tell her to do something that she doesn't want to do, I get back talk from her. So it's not a good idea to try to teach her.
Yes, the quickest way for divorce. Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah. So, Teresa usually tells me how to teach instead. Yeah, it's the best way around. Okay, so an outside practice, you're climbing and you're living in a very active lifestyle. You've got a big amount of land to look after. You read. What else do you like to do? Anything?
I think just being outdoors is really the thing that we're the happiest doing. It doesn't have to necessarily be anything really hardcore like rock climbing or ice climbing. It can just be, sometimes I'll go to the park, or I'll go out in my backyard and just sit down with my dog and just kind of like meditate out in the woods. I just really love being outside. There's nothing that grounds me or gets me, in a better state than just being outside. And I think even before yoga, before I understood what meditation was, I was doing a lot of mountaineering. I've done some mountaineering in Alaska and then in Peru and in Ecuador. And some of these peaks I've been on are so remote, and they maybe only see like, 1 or 2 people on top of them, like a month or something, very remote peaks, and being so small in such a big place and being somewhere where there's no one else. And that like, man, if I even tripped and twisted my ankle right now, a small injury like that would probably kill me because I'm so far remote right now. So that really makes you feel just like it humbles you a lot. And I think that's where I first really understood what meditation was, just feeling this like true peace and clarity of the mind. So I still go back to that. That's still probably my most powerful way to like really connect with me, is just being outside.
And you said Ashtanga at the start. Ashtanga was the hardest thing you've done. It strikes me as a strange thing to say after being in the Marines and climbing mountain peaks. Do you really believe that? Is it really hardest? And why is it really the hardest thing you've done then?
So when my body's feeling good, no, it's not the hardest. I actually love the practice, and it flows very nicely and smoothly, and it's not so hard. But I think on those days where my back hurts, those days where I'm having more of the mental battle, where it's like I want to stop practicing, but I know I should keep going on.
Because it feels better when you've done it, right? I mean, that's
exactly
the case that you.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It is definitely, the asana practice is a very powerful tool in my life. If I use that tool correctly, then I feel so much better. Yeah, I mean, it's the mental process that's really hard for me with Ashtanga. Of just staying dedicated. That's really where the challenge is. Physically, it's not the hardest thing I've ever done.
You find it hard to do it consistently, to just keep on doing it. Right?
Yeah, when I'm hurting, it takes all of my energy to just like stay focused and do it. That's what I love. Is I can find a challenge every day, one way or another.
But you're finding, just to kind of reiterate, you're finding that, having done it and having gone through the series and actually the back bends as well have help your back, even when you start in pain, you feel better when you've done it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But it must be a lot of pain then if you have to press through that much, right?
Well, it's not pain for my back bends, but yeah, like in my Surya Namaskar and my standing postures, like sometimes it is just excruciating to bend forward or to reach down sideways in Trikonasana. Like sometimes it takes me 3 or 4 breaths to get down there when my back hurts, to really get into the posture correctly. There are some days where it's kind of miserable, but I feel great afterwards,
Right.
Yeah.
What about the breathing effects from that? Because obviously it's a discipline characterized by the breathing and moving aspects, as opposed to, something else. Have you found that the breathing has helped with it? I mean, you would imagine that it would, yeah.
Very, very much, yeah.
Right.
If I am more focused on the breath and less concerned about what my asana looks like, if I really just am like, I'm going to move with the breath and see what comes up, the pain seems to go away much faster. My body gets warmed up more quickly. So it's kind of like building a fire, like you have to have the right balance of everything. You can't have too much wood and not enough air, or not enough heat, and the same thing with the asana practice. Like if it's all just like strength focused and lifting up and jumping back, and you're not concerned about the vinyasa count and the breath, I think it takes something away from it, So yeah, there has to be this nice equal balance.
What's your favorite posture? Just to break it up and end on a lighter note. Yeah. What's your favorite posture? What's your worst posture?
Kapotasana is my absolute favorite posture.
Your favorite?
Yeah. And I know I said earlier, be careful with deep back bends, but for me, that's not a deep back bend. It feels really therapeutic. It feels like I can breathe. It feels great.
You're not. I think you'd have a lot of kickback against putting that out there as a general favorite posture for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know it's not a popular one.
I thought you were going to say it's the worst posture. Yeah.
No, I love it.
That's funny. That's it. Yeah. Right.
My worst posture right now is like Dvipada. But ironically, like when I first started, like I loved putting my legs behind my head. It was so simple for me. It was weird. I couldn't forward fold and touch my toes, but my hips were open. I could put my legs behind my head. It was weird. Yeah. But I've lost that.
Dvipada, never like that. Yekapada and many other things with legs behind head in the advanced series. But Dvipada, I always wanted to get those legs, like, the feet when they go really to the side, like I see some, particularly women, you see those, but they look like ears,
Yeah.
Never managed to get that, I wanted to, aesthetically, I was not pleased with my Drupada. Yeah. Before I start rambling on about the postures, finally, what give me an aspiration and one kind of particular, I always say a guilty pleasure that you have, a little pleasure, and something that you would aspire to.
I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I guess with the practice, I really enjoy teaching, and I live in a super small town, and I just would like to see more students someday like travel here to me to practice instead of me having to. I like traveling, but I get tired being on a plane all the time and traveling. I'd really love to have like a little retreat center here and have students coming here to me and staying. And I do have that a little bit now and again, but I'd like to have it on a consistent basis. People coming into town and staying here. That's I guess what I aspire with my career, and teaching. But my own personal practice, like I said, it's just for me, like my goal is to age well, and to be healthy. So.
What about an indulgence, Colin? Apart from the green salads every night. My pizza on a Friday.
No, my biggest weakness is sugar by far. I love sugar, and ice cream is like my absolute favorite thing to eat the night before Moon Day or the night before Rest Day. That's definitely.
Was that place in Mysore? I can't remember the name of it now. Something House, wasn't it? A little ice cream place you used to go to.
I can't remember the name of it either.
I used to enjoy that place. Yeah. With that caramel sauce and the ice cream. Yeah, very nice.
I can't remember the name of it either. But it was actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, and it's been really nice to chat to you. And where can people find you? It's your website is eponymous. Your name?
Yeah. I think the easiest place where I'm the most active is Instagram. Yoga Marque.
Yoga Marque with a QUE.
QUE. Correct. Yeah.
Yoga Marque. Okay.
I have a website too, and I have other places. I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not active on those as much. I don't really pay attention.
Okay. Definitely check out the Instagram, social media. It's fantastic. I really recommend it, everyone. And thanks for coming, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate it.